Dawn breaks over the North Georgia mountains. In the still air, atop Bell Mountain, two figures lie motionless on the graffiti-scrawled rock. Over 3,000 feet above the world, moments ago, hikers stumbled upon a scene unimaginable tragedy. Two young men, twin brothers just 19 years old, are found side by side, each fatally wounded by gunfire. Their wallets unused, plane tickets for a trip that never happened. They are far from home, on a remote summit they never even heard of, and no one can yet say how or why they ended up there. These two brothers were Qaadir and Naazir Lewis of Lawrenceville, Georgia. Was this a murder-suicide or something else entirely? In the days to come, officials will rule the case a suicide, implying both brothers chose to end their lives together. But their loved ones refused to accept the verdict, insisting they wouldn't do this and pleading for the truth. Two inseparable lives, one mysterious mountain, and zero clear answers. This is the story of the Lewis twins, a tragedy that raises more questions than it answers. And you are now listening to Cigar and A Crime. Whether you're East Coast, West Coast, or Deep South, welcome back to Cigar and A Crime. I am your host, Dr. D. Before we delve deeper into the unsettling case of Qaadir and Naazir Lewis, let's take a moment to set the tone with our chosen cigar of the day, a smoke selected to metaphorically echo the story's themes. Today, I picked up the Dos Hermanos Royal Robusto. The name Dos Hermanos literally means two brothers, a fitting tribute to the Lewis twins. This is an exotic hand-rolled cigar crafted from a blend of Indonesian and Brazilian tobaccos, known for its well-balanced flavor. As I toast, and like this Robusto, rich notes of earth and spice emerge. The two distinct tobaccos working in harmony, much like two siblings in sync. I imagine Qaadir and Naazir, Dos Hermanos, walking side by side, their lives intertwined as closely as the dual tobaccos in this cigar. There is a slow, thoughtful burn to the Dos Hermanos that matches the pensive mood of our investigation today. It's smooth but bold, with an undercurrent of bitter sweetness that feels appropriate given the story we're about to unravel. With each draw, I'm reminded of the twins' bond and the lingering complexity of their case. Now with this aroma of this symbolic cigar in the air, let's turn our focus to the young men at the heart of this tragedy. Let's talk a little bit about Qaadir and Naazir Lewis. They were more than just headlines. They were more than just headlines and names. They were real people with dreams, talents, and loving family ties. Born only 1 minute apart, these Lewis brothers grew up in Lawrenceville, a suburban community just outside of Atlanta. By age 19, they stood on the cusp of adulthood, full of optimism. In fact, their auntie Yasmin recalls that both twins wanted so much for their future, even nurturing dreams of starting their own clothing line, creative and entrepreneurial. Qaadir and Naazir had begun planning how to turn their sense of style into a business venture, reflecting a shared ambition to build something together. Personality-wise, those who knew these brothers described them as outgoing, funny, and deeply caring. Both of them were funny. They loved spending time with their family. Their aunt Samira fondly remembered, these twins had a way of lighting up a room, quick to crack jokes, and even quicker to support a loved one that was in need. Despite being teenagers, they were known for their maturity and warmth, They grew up in this close-knit family environment, surrounded by relatives who doted on them. They came from a family of love. As their auntie emphasized, and the twins reciprocated that love in spades. Importantly, Qaadir and Naazir were inseparable, the kind of twins who truly were best friends. Their uncle Rahim even mentioned that the brothers were inseparable. I couldn't imagine them hurting each other because I've never even seen them get into a fist fight before, is what their uncle said. Growing up side by side, they had an unbreakable bond. They protected each other fiercely. If one twin was seen, the other was usually right nearby. In school and social circles, they were known as a complementary pair. Different in individual personality, perhaps, but fundamentally united. Friends would say the twins balanced each other out, one's strengths filling in the other one's weaknesses, and vice versa. They had a strong family structure that supported this strong support system. They lived with their immediate family in Gwinnett County, and they also had a wider circle of relatives involved in their lives. They have an older sister, Kyrie, who adored her younger brothers. The three siblings were very close. Kyrie often acted as a cheerleader for the twins. Even cousins, aunts, and uncles played a big role. The Bronner family, the twins' maternal relatives, were especially tight-knit. Weekends meant large family gatherings and cookouts and laughter. You know how we get down south. The twins were the life of these gatherings, known for their playful teasing of cousins and helping an aunt in the kitchen. Family members recount that these twins, Qaadir and Naazir, were happy, outgoing young men who were close to their family. And I will ask you this, listeners. I will ask you this, CNC family. Are these the attributes? Is this the personality of someone, of two people that would take their own lives? By early 2025, Qaadir and Naazir had finished high school and were weighing next steps, possibly launching that clothing line, continuing school or just traveling. They were especially excited about an opportunity to go to Boston to visit friends that was there. A getaway they had been planning eagerly. To their family, the twins seemed happy, focused, and full of plans. There was no signs of distress. As their Aunt Sabria said, "We know them. They wouldn't do anything like this," which is why their sudden deaths felt not just tragic, but utterly inexplicable. Now let's turn to the timeline of that fateful March 2025 weekend and the investigation that followed. The events unfolded rapidly and left everyone grasping for answers. On Friday, March 7th, 2025, Qaadir and Naazir were supposed to be on a plane first thing in the morning. They had booked a 7 a.m. flight from Atlanta to Boston for a long-anticipated trip to visit their friends. The plan was simply fly up there together, enjoy a fun-filled weekend in Boston, and return home with stories to tell. That morning, one of the twins, Naazir, headed to Hartsfield, the international airport, reportedly alone. He had an e-ticket in his name, which is interesting because records later showed only Naazir had purchased an airline ticket for the trip when both of them were planned to go together. Now, it's unclear why Qaadir didn't have an e-ticket or have a ticket at all, Perhaps the brothers planned to buy that second ticket at the airport, or there was some kind of mix-up. What we do know is that Naazir never boarded that flight. Surveillance footage confirmed that he arrived at the airport on March 7th, but then left without flying out. He returned home to Lawrenceville instead. So the Boston trip was effectively canceled at the last minute for reasons we don't know. So that evening, as the sun set on March 7th, the twins were back together in their hometown. Far from appearing upset or distraught, they carried on with a normal Friday night. In fact, a surveillance camera captured Qaadir and Naazir around midnight at a gas station in Lawrenceville, calmly buying snacks and drinks. This video later became a very key piece of evidence because it showed that the brothers' demeanor just hours before their deaths. They looked relaxed, chatting casually with each other. There were no obvious signs of distress or alarm. They weren't being coerced or followed in that moment, as far as anyone can tell. It was just two young men grabbing some late-night munchies, possibly before their trip. The timestamp on the gas station footage corresponds to the night of March 7th, which suggests that after aborting the flight, the twins decided to drive somewhere together. Little did anyone know they were embarking on a final journey. In the early hours of Saturday, March 8th, the Lewis brothers left the familiar streets of Gwinnett County and headed north. Using cell phone GPS data, investigators later retraced the route the twins took that night. It appears they drove roughly 90 miles up into the Appalachian foothills, crossing into Towns County in the northeastern corner of Georgia. Their destination? Bell Mountain, a rugged overlook near to the Carolina border. Why they chose Bell Mountain remains one of the haunting, unanswered questions. The family insists that the twins had no reason to be there. They never heard of Bell Mountain before. Indeed, Bell Mountain is not a place where you just stumble upon accidentally. It's a specific scenic spot well off the main highways. One has to drive up a steep, winding road to reach the summit. It's known for its 360-degree views and, unfortunately, also for the graffiti covering its rocks and lookout decks. In the darkness before dawn, on March 8th, the summit would have been isolated and silent, which would have been safe for the twins' vehicle climbing up this mountain road. Around 11:05 a.m. on March 8th, hikers at Bell Mountain stumbled upon the bodies of two young men near the summit overlook. They called 911 immediately. Responding deputies from the town's country sheriff's office found both victims unresponsive with gunshot wounds. IDs confirmed they were 19-year-old twins, Qaadir and Naazir Lewis. A single firearm was recovered nearby. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation was notified by noon, and agents quickly joined the scene to begin combing the mountains for evidence. After a preliminary review of the scene, investigators initially believed the case was a murder-suicide, that one twin shot the other before taking his own life. With only one firearm found, two victims, and no signs of outside involvement, the theory seemed plausible at first glance. But that explanation would soon face some serious goddamn challenges. The bodies were sent to the GBI crime lab for autopsies, of course. News of this twins' deaths shattered the family in Lawrenceville. Just the day before, Qaadir and Naazir had been planning a trip to Boston. Now authorities are saying they were dead and possibly at each other's hands. The family instantly rejected this idea. They say they knew right away that wasn't true. Their uncle Rahim was like, no, that was crazy. Their aunt Samira was insisted that they were murdered. As the investigation unfolded, the case drew public scrutiny. While the GBI methodically processed this evidence, the Lewis family spoke out, grieving, united, and defiant. They couldn't accept that one brother would ever harm the other. They had no reason to take their own lives. It felt like a nightmare to them. Their auntie Sabria was even more direct with the news stations. Foul play was definitely involved. The fact that the twins were found with their unused plane tickets still in their wallets only deepened their doubts. In their eyes, the brothers were headed to Boston, not to die on a mountain. So as this investigation unfolded, the GBI uncovered a mix of clues, some suggesting that the twins may have planned their deaths, others leaving lingering doubts. So let's go through these. The cell phone and travel data. Location data from the twins' phone, plus traffic and business camera footage, showed Qaadir and Naazir traveling alone from Gwinnett County to Bell Mountain. We know that. No other individuals appeared to be with or following them. However, their phones can be pinged for the final 30 minutes before reaching the summit. Now, this could be possibly due to poor reception, but the family saw it as a suspicious gap. Airline records. Only Naazir had confirmed his ticket for a March 7th flight to Boston. The CCTV showed him at the terminal briefly, but he left without boarding. So Qaadir never entered the airport. Why one twin showed up and the other didn't remains unclear, but they both stayed in Georgia. The firearm and ammunition. Investigators found that Naazir had ordered ammunition on March 5th, and it was delivered to the Lewis home. Those bullets matched the gun found at the scene. The origin of the gun remains undisclosed, but the ammo purchase points out the planning. And let's go with the search history now. Digital forensic revealed internet searches on how to load a gun and suicidal statistics. These weren't random. They indicated that there were twins may have been preparing for a joint suicide. The gunshot residue and ballistics. Both of those brothers had gunshot residue on their hands, and autopsy results suggested each had fired the weapon. The entry wounds were consistent with self-infliction, with no signs of a struggle. So by May 2025, the GBI conducted that both brothers died by suicide. A tragic and mutual decision rather than an act of violence between them. By May 21st, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation officially closed this case, ruling it a double suicide. Investigators shared their findings with the Lewis family privately before public announcement. Their conclusion, of course, the twins had formed a suicide pact, traveled to Bell Mountain, and ended their lives. The evidence, cell records, forensic tests, ammunition purchases, and search history all supported this narrative. In the GBI's words, the injuries were self-inflicted, and there was no sign of third-party involvement. But for the Lewis family, that ruling offered no peace. They immediately rejected this conclusion, insisting that Qaadir and Naazir had no reason to die and certainly wouldn't harm each other. They had no reason to be on that mountaintop. Then came this disturbing breach of ethics. Towns County volunteer firefighter Scott Curlin, who responded to the scene, He took unauthorized photos of the twins' bodies and shared them with people. He was arrested March 18th and charged with misdemeanor obstruction. For the family, this violation just deepened their grief and it intensified online speculation. Despite this case being closed, the family launched a GoFundMe to fund their own investigation. And within weeks, donations poured in, though one of those private investigators had to step away, citing the case's complexity. So the family continues to seek a seasoned homicide expert. At the heart of this case are two competing stories. The GBI's view that it was a planned double suicide. The evidence fits and there's no signs of foul play. And the family's view. The twins were killed. They were happy and had a future. They couldn't possibly do this to one another. This case remains a painful standoff. Hard evidence points to suicide, while the family's instincts say otherwise. It's a collision between data and deep and unshakable love, one that leaves this Bell Mountain tragedy unresolved and echoing with questions. Going into my reflection, in the quiet aftermath, this case lingers like cigar smoke in the air, heavy, complex, unresolved. The GBI's conclusion rests solidly on evidence, travel logs, gunshot residue, search history. A double suicide by all accounts. Yet the Lewis family's heartbreak doesn't conform to forensic logic. For them, the idea that Qaadir and Naazir choose to die, and not just die, but die together on a remote mountain, is incomprehensible. Their grief is doubled, and so is their need for answers. The absence of a clear villain only deepens the agony. Suicide turns grief inward. Murder would at least offer someone to blame, but here, the family is left fighting shadows, confusion, disbelief, and a story that feels wrong in their bones. Could the twins have masked a shared mental health crisis? Perhaps. Depression doesn't always announce itself. Even close families miss the signs. But the Lewis families insist the boys were joyful, planning for the future, headed to Boston, and they weren't known to own a gun. The search history haunts us. How to load a gun, suicide rates. Were they preparing? Exploring? Or was it curiosity or confession? And then there's this race factor. We're talking about Georgia. Generational mistrust of Southern law enforcement shapes the family's suspicion. Hell, it shapes mine. From Tamla Horsford to local graffiti at Bell Mountain, reminders that being black in the rural South can carry some danger. Trust me, I grew up there. That context matters. It's part of the reason why official narratives meet such resistance. And we can go on and on about that. The firefighter, this asshole who shared unauthorized photos, added to fuel and public doubt. It was a grotesque breach of security or ethics, and for the family, another trauma. In response, they turned their grief into action, fundraising for a private investigation, refusing to let the story end with the GBI's foul closure. Many questions remain unanswered. Why Bell Mountain? Why did only Naazir have a ticket? Why keep the tickets at all? Where was the gun from? Why no suicide notes? These open threads make the family's doubt feel justified, even as the evidence points in a clear direction. This case leaves us is staring at the fragile veil between appearance and reality. How do two outwardly thriving young men die in such a way? If the suicide theory is true, it calls us to look more closely at how we talk about mental health, especially among young black men who are often expected to be strong, silent, and unshakable. And if it's not true, if foul play did occur, then someone walked away from Bell Mountain, and the truth still waits in silence. In the end, what's undeniable is the loss. Two radiant lives extinguished far too soon. Their sister Kyrie captured it best. They were a bright light on some of the most darkest days. They will forever live on. Whether you believe in the suicide ruling or not, one thing holds. Qaadir and Naazir mattered, and in telling their story, we honor that truth. May their memories be a blessing, and may their families someday find the peace they seek. Thank you for listening to this in-depth exploration of the Bell Mountain tragedy, the story of the Lewis twins. This has been episode 9 of Cigar and A Crime. I appreciate you lending your time and thoughts to this difficult story. If you found this episode compelling, please follow our podcast and consider sharing it with others who care about seeking truth and justice. Your support really helps keep this conversation going. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss an episode. We have more intriguing and heartfelt stories coming up in future weeks, from cold cases to contentious investigations. We'll continue shining a light on the untold truths, one story and one cigar at a time. Until our next tale, stay curious, stay vigilant, and take care of one another. This is Dr. D signing off. I'll catch you next time on Cigar and A Crime. And remember, sometimes the answer's out there, burning slow like the end of a cigar, just waiting to be found. Guys, stay safe. See you soon. And always remember, the smoke, it never lies.